Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where you can find all of your basic guides on Total War games. Today we'll be covering the Regiment of Renown units for the Empire roster. If you haven't already, check out my unit roster guides for the Empire, as this one will only cover Regiment of Renown units and their individual roles. It should be noted that I will not cover the stat improvements for the units, as all Regiment of Renown versions will have improved stats. The comparisons to the normal variants will be shown on the unit cards. Sigmars Sons are swordsmen with the unbreakable trait. This makes them much more appealing for holding the front line, as regular swordsmen tend to rout more easily. Try to place them in the center of your frontline formations so that they can act as your anchor. The Tattersalls' notable benefit is their increased unit size, giving them 30 extra men compared to the normal flagellants. This combined with their increased melee stats makes them an even more tenacious unit that the enemy needs to fully wipe out. Place them in your front lines and engage them with elite infantry to hold them down while you flank them, or you can send them after the lightly armored infantry to completely shred them. The Deathjacks are almost identical to the regular Empire archers, but they get the powerful combination of stalk and snipe, allowing them to fire while remaining concealed from basically anywhere on the map. They also have vanguard deployment, so you can easily position them behind the enemy before the battle even starts. These work best for moving them into position behind the enemy to fire into their backs. Sterling's Revenge have stalk, which allows them to be much better ambushers and flankers. Their missiles also have much more armor-piercing damage, allowing them to dish out much more damage from afar. These renowned units are basically short-range handgunners with only slightly less armor-piercing missile damage. The Silver Bullets are your answer to any high physical resistance units you come up against. Their magical attacks make short work of any ethereal units, or units such as Savage Orcs. If you plan to make use of their stalk ability, make sure they are escorted, otherwise they will be extremely vulnerable and easily taken out in melee. The White Wolves largely gain improved melee stats from being a renowned unit. This is useful for fending off light cav or other harassing units. They have the incorrigibility and immunity to psychology. They are still best used for firing into the large targets. Zintlers Reichsguard have vanguard deployment and immunity to psychology. This allows them to deploy sneakily and hold longer against fear and terror causing enemies, which is very common when fighting the vampire counts. These will mainly be used for your basic hammer and anvil tactics. The Royal Alt Dwarf Griffites are an incredibly valuable unit on the Empire roster. They cause terror, which makes them very strong against low leadership factions. They are also probably the best anti-large unit in the Empire roster, so if you're expecting many large units against a certain faction, you may want to bring these. These are extremely vulnerable to missile fire as they do not have any shields. Preferably, these will be used for intercepting enemy cav or monstrous units fighting on the frontline engagements. The Black Lions are a very interesting and powerful unit. They are Hellblaster volley guns on wagons. They are extremely good at shredding heavy infantry while also being mobile. This allows the unit to be used for flanking tactics, pulling them around the flanks of the front lines and firing into their backs. Even though they are mainly good at shredding infantry, they are still quite decent at taking down large armored targets as well. The Hammer of the Witches are an extremely strong artillery piece. The renowned versions have magic ammunition and an added 25% physical resistance in case it were to get caught in melee combat. These will be used similar to the cannons, focus firing large armored targets or heroes and lords. You could also target ethereal units if there are no other priority targets. The Sunmaker is another strong artillery piece, very useful in your fight against the vampire counts. The Sunmaker gets flaming ammunition, which is extremely good against units with regeneration or undead units. The only downside of this artillery piece is that it has much less ammunition than its normal counterpart, meaning you will need to choose your targets wisely, only firing into the elite armored infantry. The Tempelhof Luminar comes with the ability called Net of Ammontok, which allows you to completely immobilize one unit for 20 seconds. This means you can net down a high value target and deal massive damage to it while it is immobilized. It also comes with the Encourage trait, giving extra leadership to nearby allies. Do not allow this unit to fire at will, as it has a small amount of ammunition. Priority targets are large armored targets or lords and heroes. So that about wraps it up for our Regiment of Renown units of the Empire. Hope you found it useful for your Empire campaigns. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you drop a like. Also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.